from Victor. Where is Victor? Hi, Victor.
Good evening, guys. Is it right to suspend pupils for damaging a copy of the Quran?
This is a fascinating story.
Yeah.
So this is in West Yorkshire. It was a secondary school. These pupils, school kids, brought in a copy of the Quran, I think as a dare, they said. And then there were reports that it had been burnt or ripped apart. None of those were true, by the way. Yeah. So what actually happened was there was a slight tear to the cover and a bit of smudging on one of the papers. But the pupils and the school itself has made clear that there was no malice from the pupils. That was not the case here. So we know that. And then they were suspended. The school's even been liaising with the police. Yeah. It's a damaged book.
Well, it is a damaged book. Unfortunately, if you damage that book, there can be consequences, mate.
Yeah, no, I'm aware.
I am
aware of that.
One of the consequences. I made a joke and none of them laughed.
Yeah.
So, see, still not laughing.
Look, I'm fully aware of the sensitivities around this. And by the way, I think deliberately damaging a holy book that means a lot to someone is an unpleasant thing to do, as it happens. But I also think that if you damage a book and you don't believe that that book has any spiritual significance, that shouldn't be a suspendable offence.
No, I quite agree with you. However, I'm trying to think of a way, because it's pre-watershed, the school were bricking it. So
I think you're allowed to say that.
Yeah. And as a result of that, they really panicked, because if you look at what has happened with teachers showing cartoons, as in Batley Grammar School, they know what could happen to them potentially, which is why they're coming down really hard on the pupils, but also not kicking the pupils under the bus. And they're thinking by doing this, that is their best strategy of not having a load of people turn up threatening to...
Well, this is terrible, isn't it? Because we're talking about fear then and intimidation. You know, at Batley Grammar School, a teacher showed some images of the Prophet Muhammad in a lesson about free speech and that kind of thing. It was a perfectly legitimate thing to do. And then he got death threats, had to go into hiding, I believe still is.
Still in hiding.
So, but surely we as a society have to say, no, you don't get to do this. You don't get to intimidate people because they don't share your belief system.
The horse is bolted. We should have done that at that time.
We should have done it with Salman Rushdie.
We should have stood firm. There are many times we should have stood firm, not just against the Quran and Islam, against anything like that, where we say, no, this is not what we're about as a society, and you're not going to bully us in this way. That's exactly why this school has reacted in this way. It's much easier to have this type of attention, where you've got guys like us up here having this discussion, than it is to have, 60 Muslim fellas stood outside your school chanting...
Well, it happened with that film, The Lady of Heaven, as well, and that was a particularly interesting one, where cinemas pulled the film because there were gangs outside intimidating, screaming, all the rest of it. But this was actually a film made by Muslims. It was just the wrong kind of Muslims.
Exactly. So the reality is, when it comes to this particular issue, people are very scared, and they're very scared for good reason. And they will look at, for instance, what happened to Salman Rushdie recently, where they tried to kill him. They will look at the murder of Sir David Ames. And they were very, very worried. They have every right to be, and they have dealt with this in a way that they think shuts down any criticism of the way they've handled it, but also protected the pupils in question.
Yeah, I do understand the difficulty and why the concerns are legitimate.
Yeah.
They're right to be nervous, but I come back to this point that I think societally we need to be a bit more strong on this issue.
Absolutely. So you first, Andrew, then everybody else.
And there we are.